Hey, Zack here from Frontenac Outfitters Canoe and Kayak Center. Today we're going to talk about, well, purchasing your first kayak, or maybe you're looking at upgrading to a second or third kayak. I'm going to arm you with some advice, some tips, some things to look out for when you're shopping around for a new kayak. So we get asked this question a lot around here is do you have any kayaks for sale? Or I want to buy a kayak, what do you suggest? And you know, that is kind of a loaded question. There's so many options and so many different kind of niches of kayak that we really don't know what you're looking for without a little bit more information, digging deeper into what you want to do with the boat, what you want it to weigh, what your budget is, all kinds of things. And we'll get into these kind of point by point. For the most part, unless you're looking for kind of a really recreational style boat, you're going to want to find something that's going to fit you rather well. It's like shopping for a pair of running shoes. What's going to fit me really well isn't necessarily going to fit my wife Kylie really well, or fit a teenage daughter, or whatever the case may be. What I'm trying to say is we all got different body types, so we need to try and match up the kayak as best we can to what's going to accommodate us in the type of kayak we want to be in. So a big thing I think right off the bat is, what style of kayaking do you want to do? Is it just you want to go up to the cottage or your local, calm body of water or pond and just putt around, look at birds? Well, recreation or sit on top fishing kayak style of boat is probably going to work best for you. Are you more performance driven and you're looking for maybe not a full-on sea kayak at this point, but something a little sportier that's still offering good stability, kind of an entry-level touring boat? Something like a day touring kayak is probably gonna work better for you. If you wanna just kind of jump right at it, or you're ready to upgrade to a full sea kayak, well, then it's time to start looking at performance touring boats or sea kayaks. Maybe none of this is appealing to you at all, and you're watching videos of Dane Jackson going off 100-foot waterfalls and slalom boaters screaming down rapids, and that's what's appealing to you. Well, you're gonna want a whitewater boat, and there's niches within all of these classes as well to kind of figure out what's going to work best for you. Maybe you wanna do a bunch. I enjoy sea kayaking, I enjoy whitewater kayaking, both a lot. Recently I've got into kayak fishing, so that's kind of the recreation side, and I really just enjoy, that's kind of my meditation time. I get to go down on the water, just relax in the sun, not paddling too aggressively, but just kind of more focusing on fishing. Whitewater, what I really like about it is it's meditative as well, in a different degree though. It really forces me to focus on what's going on around me in the immediate time. Everything else that I'm worried about with work, life, family, it all kind of gets put behind because I'm just focused on exactly what's coming up ahead of me. And what I enjoy about sea kayaking is just the touring aspect of it, the beauty of it, the speed and finesse of these boats. Being able to go out for multiple days at a time into some really remote areas is really, really appealing to me as well. And that's a whole nother kind of, again, keep coming back to this meditative state, but that's what I find it provides for me, is just this freedom of feeling free is really what that's all about. So let's chat about budget. Okay, that's going to be an important one. I mean, kayaks can be as little as a few $100 up to thousands of dollars, depending on what you want to do with this boat. For an entry-level paddler, depending how determined you are and how fluid your cash level is, you might want to start with something a bit better quality. And it's always, I think, good advice to buy your second kayak first. You may feel like, oh, that one might be a little too advanced for me, et cetera, but honestly, chances are, if you can probably grow into that boat fairly quickly, even if it is slightly above your skill level. You always want to be mindful, if you're starting off with something too low, you're going to paddle it for a few months, maybe less, outgrow it, and be upgrading, ahead of time anyway. Figuring out a realistic budget can be a little tricky because, well, there's the kayak to buy, there's a PFD, there's a paddle, there's a safety kit, and that's just to keep you legal. Somehow you're gonna have to transport this, so you're gonna need a vehicle capable of doing that with roof racks, or there are inexpensive ways to do it, but it is factoring into this cost. And then just the accessories. Are you gonna want to be paddling early spring and late fall? Well, then you're gonna need some immersion protection, whether it's a wetsuit, dry suit, gloves, all these other things to start considering as you kind of continue your adventure on into kayaking. A lot of this gear can carry over from other sports, so you don't have to buy dedicated paddling gear. But it is, important to keep in mind, you're going to need to add, for your average kayak purchase, I'd say anywhere from $500 to $1,000 worth of accessories to kind of immediately get you on the water. Then there's the option of buying used. This video may be around for a while. Currently it's 2021. Kayaks are in crazy high demand. We're pretty much sold out of a lot of models for the season and booking boats into the fall. The used market is just as hot. Kayaks are going up and selling just as quickly as they're going up with, you know, multiple offers. So the price point savings maybe isn't quite there this year. Likely it'll come back to normal in a year or two, and we'll see a reduction in used boat prices, more availability on the new market. So that'll all kind of work itself out in the very near future here. Buying used is a really, really good way to go. I bought my first couple of kayaks when I first started getting started in the sport used, and it's a good way to really get some good value. You might get a paddle thrown in or a PFD. Obviously make sure that the PFD fits and it's a good PFD and not all tattered and beaten up. But it's a good way to save some money and try out the sport. Something to consider is making sure that used boat fits you. And as we go through these series of questions, you know, it'll help kind of figure out if that kayak's going to work for you between you looking at manufacturer specs and getting advice from friends or, you know, paddling clubs and that type of thing. Going with a new boat, never a bad choice. Obviously, we sell new kayaks here, so I want to sell you a new kayak, of course. But, you know, we want to make sure that we sell you the right boat. So we're not here to just kind of shove, you know, just to get kayaks out the door, to make sure that you're getting in the right boat. So questions we're generally going to ask you: what type of kayak you want to do? We kind of covered that already. You know, is it recreation, fishing, touring? Second question: what's your height and weight? And why is that important? Well, for most kayaks, other than some recreation, it's a really important question to make sure that we can find a boat that's going to fit your body type well. Is it an exact science? Not really, but we're pretty good at narrowing those choices down to 2 or 3 boats that we feel are likely going to fit you really, really well. Why 2 or 3 choices? Well, not everybody's the same in what we all find comfortable. Take, for instance, the Zack brand of kayaks. This is a really high-end touring boat. If you're looking for that, yeah, but there's going to be some sacrifices made in mainly the comfort and the stability of the kayak. To me, this is a very stable boat, but I've been paddling for a long time, so I'm used to paddling in a sea kayak. I understand how it works in the water. But as a beginner, you might feel a little in over your head if you get something like this. So trying to find something that's going to work for you and what you want to build to is what our main goal is. Why is size important? Well, a lot of kayaks, even in the touring range, will come in at least 2 sizes, sometimes 3, sometimes even 4 sizes. So really kind of dialing in what your height and weight is so that we can specify, okay, you're likely going to fit best into this boat. Maybe you need to bump up in size just because you want to carry extra gear with you, and we can talk about what that entails and what that means. One kayak that comes to mind, you know, that almost anybody can paddle would be like the Pungo 120 or the Delta 12 AR. These are a couple of really well-designed recreation kayaks that are going to suit almost anybody, whether it's a young teenager or even grandma. They're designed with a lot of stability, being able to track in a straight line. Weights are kind of, you know, a little bit here and there, but again, it just depends on what you want to do with it. Weight of a kayak. Well, that's a good segue. We have a couple of major kind of ways kayaks are constructed. You have composite boats and you have plastic boats. And there's factors on both of those sides that are going to dictate the price of the kayak and the weight of the kayak. In our plastic side, we have rotomolded polyethylene and ABS as the 2 kind of major components. Composites, there's a whole mess of composites in the kayaking world these days. From fiberglass, Kevlar, carbon, mixtures of all these materials to kind of create different weights and different budget set points. So it's certainly worthwhile, you know, paying attention to what that is, and we can talk about, you know, benefits and drawbacks of different materials in another video. What I should say is a good rule of thumb is as your kayak gets lighter, generally the price tag tends to creep up with that as well. Another question we're likely to ask is, what experience do you have? You know, if you call, say, I'm looking for, you know, a Zack Empower. I may be inclined to ask, okay, what have you paddled before? Not because I don't believe you can paddle the Zack, but I just want to have a familiarity with what you have and what your expectations of that kayak might be. When we talk about boat design, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but there are a lot of factors that dictate what a kayak is going to do, how you're going to fit in it, and what your experience may be in it. Other things to consider when you're looking at boats is the fit. As the actual fit of the boat and how it fits you. Like we talked about earlier with that kind of shoe, you know, when you're buying a running shoe, you want a really good fit. Well, our kayak, we want a really good fit as well. And honestly, it does make a difference even on our recreation kayaks, all the way up to our high-end sea kayaks and whitewater boats. How that fit is determined is by your height and weight, but you want to be able to make contact points with the boat. If the boat is too big, you're not going to make those contact points, and you're not going to have the control that you should out of a kayak that's going to fit you properly. So that's why gaining fit is a really, really important thing, especially when we're looking at higher end boats such as sea kayaks and whitewater boats. Fit is one of the most crucial things that we can get, and we want to make sure that we get it right the first time. So we've kind of narrowed down a bunch of questions: weight, budget, comfort, utility, all these different factors, and we're starting to really kind of, I think, narrow down on a couple of choices. So once you've gotten down to those 2 or 3 choices, how are you going to know what is really going to work best for you, especially if you're buying something a little higher end? Well, the most important way is to test paddle. It's not always an option. It's not always possible. Right now, as I said earlier in the video, we're dealing with the pandemic. So test paddling here, unfortunately, isn't possible at the moment. But normally, we're offering test paddling 7 days a week. So you can come out. We can ask you these questions in person. We can get you sized into a kayak that we feel is going to work really well for you, or a couple different ones for that matter. Get you down on the water and try them out. And this is a service that we're really proud to offer 7 days a week, as opposed to just a single demo day or 2 a year. So we think there's some major value in being able to try boats out before you buy them. Because like I said, it's what works for me isn't always going to work for you. I have a different set of check marks that I need to make on my list for buying a kayak than what you might have. More often than not, people will approach us, with a certain boat in mind, and after kind of going through this checklist of questions, we'll usually hone in on a model or two that was maybe not on their radar, or they didn't think about, and they end up actually leaving with that boat that we have suggested for them. Not always. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we're pretty good at narrowing it down to ideally one of the right choices for you. So some final thoughts. Honestly, if you ever have any questions, give us a call. But I do encourage you to kind of do your homework first, before you call us or one of the other retailers, because it's going to be the same questions. Ideally, if they are a good retailer, they're going to be asking you the same set of questions. So in your email or in your phone call, kind of have an idea of what you want to do and what you want to get out of kayaking, and that will help us set you up with what you need. Part of choosing the right kayak is to have the best experience on the water, and that's genuinely what we want for you. So feel free to give us a call, send us an email. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, give us a holler.